The first time I was ever told about high definition TV was the summer of 1986. I was in a class at Oklahoma Christian. It was one of those summer classes that was a week long. And I was being taught by the audio visual guru, Jim Wood. Maybe you remember him. And Jim, if you see this, thank you so much for teaching that class. He told us that high definition was coming, and we didn't even know anything about it. So he had to explain it to us, which, was interesting in and of itself. He told us that someday in the future, that TV stations would broadcast only in high definition. The first time I remember experiencing high definition television was a number of years ago at my dad's house. And I just remember the picture was just incredibly spectacular. It was crisp. It was in focus. You could see every detail. It was amazing. And now you probably know this already, but there is 4K ultra high definition, but did you know there's already 8K ultra high definition? And I found this yesterday on Amazon, and look at this. You could buy this high definition TV for just a mere $29,000, $29,996.99. It's just crazy. But there is a 8K ultra high definition smart OLED TV, and you can see that actually came out a couple of years ago. Well, in this lesson, we're going to be talking about life in ultra high definition. What this is our fourth lesson in the Prophets and Kings series, and this lesson is entitled, If God is God. And if God is God, then we can have this life in ultra high definition, if I can put it that way. And if you're going to have ultra high definition life, what I mean by that is it is a life that has clarity to it. It has a crispness about it, a brightness to it, a joy that's attached that you just can't find anywhere else. If you're going to have that kind of life, this ultra high definition life, then you're going to have to choose to have that life. You don't just wander in on that kind of life. You don't just stroll along and find life in 8K. That just doesn't happen. You've got to make the decision for it to happen. And I need to tell you, I'm going to ask you to decide, and here's the deal, that Jehovah God is God in your life. Because until you make that decision, you won't know life in 8K. Okay, you have got to decide, is Jehovah God God in your life? Now, I do want to tell you that this lesson has actually bothered me somewhat. After being a minister for over 30 years, I know that you have to find out if something troubles you about something, you need to find out what that is. So I've kind of found out what that is about this. And this lesson is going to be a little bit frustrating because here's the reason. I know that the people who need to hear this lesson probably won't. And the people who already are on board with God being God, you're the ones that'll hear this lesson. And that's troubling to me, but I'm not sure there's really anything I can do about it. Some who have opted for a casual, convenient, comfortable kind of faith, the kind of faith that has form, there's a form about it, but it denies its power. That kind of person, this will probably just roll off them like water off a duck's back. Okay, it'll probably just roll off of them like water off a duck's back, just roll right off without giving it very much of a thought at all. And those of you, though, who have been very serious about your faith, serious about molding your life to the will of the Father, you'll probably take this very much to heart. And I have a little bit of concern there. I'm glad you are, and I'm glad you will. But some will take this so much to heart that they're going to try harder. They're going to even try to do more than they've been doing, and try harder and do more in such a way that it's almost like that that child who can never please their dad, so much so that it may give some the feeling that you can never please God. You can never please God. It's almost like that parent you can't please. There's no way to get enough done, and you're going to feel frustrated about that. Well, that troubles me because I don't want that to happen either. But the truth is, I still got to try. I have to ask you to decide for yourself that you will live a life clearly, distinctively, crisply, in every detail, a life that is tuned in to Jesus Christ, that is tuned in to the Father. So now, if you would, take your Bibles and open to 1 Kings 18. In 1 Kings 18, let me tell you a little bit about what's going on when you turn to 1 Kings 18. The prophet Elijah has been in hiding for over 3 years. He's hiding from King Ahab and his evil wife, Queen Jezebel. He hid for a while across the Jordan River at the Kerith Ravine. He was fed by the ravens by a brook that eventually dried up. And then God told him to go hide, and he hid in Phoenicia. That's between Tyre and Sidon. Hide in Zarephath. So that's what he did. He was actually taken care of by this widow right here. This is a drawing of the widow, obviously. The widow and her son. But now, with God's instruction, Elijah is about to come out of hiding. He's about to come out of hiding. In the beginning of 1 Kings 18, Elijah is going to encounter Obadiah. So let's read in 1 Kings 18, and let's begin in verse 1. After a long time, in the 3rd year, the word of the Lord came to Elijah. And that 3rd year is the 3rd year of the famine, the no rain. Continuing in verse 1. The word of the Lord came to Elijah, "Go and present yourself to Ahab, and I will send rain on the land." So Elijah went to present himself to Ahab. Now the famine was severe in Samaria. And by the way, Samaria is where King Ahab would have been. That's where his palace, that's where he lived. Now the famine was severe in Samaria, and Ahab had summoned Obadiah, his palace administrator. Obadiah was a devout believer in the Lord. And while Jezebel was killing off the Lord's prophets, Obadiah had taken 100 prophets and hidden them in 2 caves, 50 in each, and had supplied them with food and water. What an awesome thing that Obadiah just did. Continuing in verse 5, Ahab had said to Obadiah, "Go through the land to all the springs and valleys. Maybe we can find some grass to keep the horses and mules alive so we will not have to kill any of our animals." So they divided the land they were to cover, Ahab going in one direction and Obadiah in another. So Elijah is going to come in contact with Obadiah. Verse 7, as Obadiah was walking along, Elijah met him. Obadiah recognized him, bowed down to the ground, and said, "Is it really you, my lord Elijah?" "Yes," he replied. "Go tell your master, Elijah is here." "What have I done wrong?" asked Obadiah. "What have I done wrong that you are handing your servant over to Ahab to be put to death? As surely as the Lord your God lives, there is not a nation or a kingdom where my master has not sent someone to look for you. And whenever a nation or kingdom claimed you were not there, he made them swear that they could not find you. But now you tell me to go to my master and say, Elijah is here? I don't know where the Spirit of the Lord may carry you when I leave. If I go and tell Ahab and he doesn't find you, he will kill me. Yet I, your servant, have worshiped the Lord since my youth. Haven't you heard, my Lord, what I did while Jezebel was killing the prophets of the Lord? I hid 100 of the Lord's prophets in 2 caves, 50 in each, and supplied them with food and water. And now you tell me to go to my master and say, Elijah's here? He will kill me. Elijah said, as the Lord Almighty lives, whom I serve, I will surely present myself to Ahab today. So Obadiah went to meet Ahab and told him, and Ahab went to meet Elijah. Man, did you hear the panic in Obadiah's voice? Oh no, I don't think so. For 3 years, everybody's looked for you, Elijah, and not even been able to find you. We have looked in every nook and cranny and not been able to find you. And as surely as I leave here, I don't know where you're going to go. You're going to leave. The king will come here, you'll be gone, and he will kill me. Elijah tells him, I'm going to stay right here. Okay, I will surely present myself to Ahab the king. You just go tell him. And so Obadiah does. Can I just say, that's pretty scary in and of itself for Obadiah. And if you remember from last week's lesson, courage in our ministries. Okay, this is what I see in Obadiah. Courage in his ministry. That's Obadiah. And then Ahab comes back, and Ahab, when he sees Elijah, he says, is that you, you troubler of Israel? Elijah says, I'm not the one who has troubled Israel. You have. You and your father's family, you have denied the commandments of God. And what he says is, this is basically what he says. I want to challenge all of Israel to make a decision. Now we're going to pick up in verse 19. Well, let's go to 18. Elijah answered, I haven't troubled Israel. You and your father's family have done it by disobeying the Lord's commands and following the various Baal gods. Order all Israel to gather around me on Mount Carmel and bring the 450 prophets of Baal and 400 prophets of Asherah who eat at Jezebel's table. Now, I want to show you a little bit before we go much further. I want to remind you about Mount Carmel. Now, this is a modern day, everyday map, but this is where Mount Carmel is. There's this kind of, there's basically a mountain ridge that goes like this, and it goes all the way down to the sea, but the high point is right about in here, where you can see the dot is. And I'm just going to remind you, right in here, this is the Valley of Jezreel. This is Megiddo right in here, and then this is Nazareth. You can see right there that's on a ledge, and we'll show that again later. Okay, the Mount Carmel is on the western side of the Valley of Jezreel. The Valley of Jezreel is basically the bread basket of Israel, and it's between Samaria, which is in this area right here, and Phoenicia, which is basically Lebanon up here. So if you can see this little outcropping right there where it says Sir, that's also the name of the city Tyre. And so Tyre is right here, and Sidon is right up here, and Zarephath is right in here. And so Elijah would have come this way going to Samaria, and he's asking for everybody to meet him on this mountain, just right here on the edge of this great breadbasket, this great valley of Jezreel. So if this were a Western, movie, basically they'd call it something like Duel in the Sun or something like that, who knows? But Elijah is saying, you bring all the people of Israel and all the prophets of Baal and Asherah, and we're going to have a duel, as it were. We're going to have a duel, and we're going to find out who is God. And then when we find out who is God, we're going to ask the people of Israel to decide, what are you going to do with that information? What are you going to do with who we have just found out is really God? Now let's go back to 1 Kings 18, and we'll be in verse 20. Ahab sent word to all the Israelites and brought the prophets together on Mount Carmel. Now, I want you to pay special attention to the next verse, verse 21. You can underline it, you can circle it, you can put a star by it. Whatever it is you want to do something, because this is a key verse. Okay? I'm going to read it to you in the God's Word translation, and then I'll also read it to you in the NIV, and then you can also read off your screen another translation. Okay, here's the verse. Elijah stood up in front of all the people and asked them, how long will you try to have it both ways? If the Lord is God, follow him. If the Lord is God, follow him. But if Baal is God, follow him. Okay, that's God's Words translation. Listen to the New International Version. Elijah went before the people and said, how long will you waver between two opinions? If the Lord is God, follow him. But if Baal is God, follow him. In other words, you've got to decide. Now, there are a couple of words in that verse that make this verse very, very illustrative. One of the words is the word opinion. You can see it there on the screen where it says opinions. That word literally means a fork in the limbs of a tree, or we might use it as like a fork in the road. Okay, the other word is the word wavered, or as on screen, it's the word falter. How long will you falter between two opinions? That word waver is the word that literally means to limp or to wobble or to hop. So basically, how long are you gonna wobble back and forth between two opinions? You got to pick one. And so Elijah is asking the people. What he's actually saying is this: how long are you going to try to sit there and figure this out? How long will you wobble back and forth? How long will you hop over to Baal and then hop over to Jehovah and then hop over? I almost wanted to say weebles wobble, but they don't fall down, but let's not even go there, right? Okay. How long are you going to do that? This fork in the road, it's going to get, as it gets even wider and wider, and you're sitting here trying to straddle it, how long are you going to keep trying to live in two different worlds? You've got to decide. That's basically what Elijah is saying. And you know, church, sometimes this is a great question for us to ask. How long will you choose to waver back and forth, living in the world, taking on the world's morals, taking on the world's securities, those things that say, hey, I am secure in this world, taking on the world's values, hobbling back and forth from what the world says important, then going back to what God says important? How long will you try to wobble between a widening fork in the road, between self-centeredness and Christ-centeredness, between self-rule, I get to determine everything, versus Christ gets to determine everything? How long will you wobble and limp through life because you keep trying to live in two worlds? You've got to decide. When are you going to decide? And I know I've said that in the you form, where I'm actually talking to you and asking you those questions, but please realize that I have to ask myself those same questions, because the choice not only makes a difference in the here and now, but it makes a difference for an eternity. Now, back in Scripture, Elijah asked this question, and then the Bible says the people didn't say a word. Now, back in verse 22, then Elijah said to them, I am the only one of the Lord's prophets left, but Baal has 450 prophets. Get 2 bulls for us. Let Baal's prophets choose one for themselves, and let them cut it into pieces and put it on the wood, but not set it on fire. I will prepare the other bull and put it on the wood, but not set it on fire. And then you call on the name of your God, and I will call on the name of the Lord, and the God who answers by fire, he is God. Elijah's basically saying, this is how we're going to do it. Okay? We're going to have 2 different altars. We're going to put a bull on top of the altar. You're going to put a bull on top of your altar. I'll put a bull on top of my altar. We're going to basically start this sacrifice, but nobody's going to put a match to it. And the God that answers with fire, that's the God that we're going to worship. And the people say, quote, then all the people said, what you say is good. Verse 25, Elijah said to the prophets of Baal, choose one of the bulls and prepare it first, since there's so many of you. Call on the name of your God, but do not light the fire. So they took the bull given them and prepared it. And then they called on the name of Baal from morning until noon. Baal, answer us, they shouted. Listen to this. But there was no response. No one answered. And they danced around the altar that they had made. Now I want to make sure you get the picture of what's going on here. And I hope we can replay this one day in heaven, because I'd love to see this. Okay, I want to push the replay button on this one, because we got 450 prophets of Baal, 400 prophets of Asherah, all on one side, what is that? 850 people. And all the people of Israel are gathered around on the top of Mount Carmel to witness this. And from morning until noon, these guys are dancing around the altar and crying out, "Oh, Baal, answer us. Oh, Baal, answer us." I've actually seen this during VBS, because this is one of our VBS productions that we do. Let's read in 1 Kings 18, verse 27. At noon, Elijah began to taunt them. "Shout louder," he said. "Surely he's a god. Perhaps he's deep in thought, or busy, or traveling. Maybe he's sleeping, must be awakened." He's saying, "Hey guys, I know what you need to do. Okay, you need to shout louder, because maybe he can't hear you. He might be asleep. If you'll just shout, surely he'll respond then." Keep reading, verse 28. So they shouted louder and slashed themselves with swords and spears, as was their custom, until their blood flowed. And just to prove their sincerity that they had to Baal, they cut themselves. And their blood flowed. Maybe even hearkening back to this blood sacrifice that would help bring him back to life. Okay, and if you see the picture there, that's actually from a cartoon. I don't know if you can tell that or not, but that really looks like that Baal idol that we saw in Megiddo. I mean, the beginning of it, where you walked up the stairs. Do you remember that? And then here is actually the statue that's put off to the side of Baal, and he's got the staff and the lightning. He's got a staff and a lightning bolt in his hand. And these are all of the prophets of Baal. And I remember what struck me when I saw this picture was the fact that, oh yeah, I kind of just have it in my picture, in my mind, that there's only like 20, maybe 10, 15, prophets, but there were like 850. And they're all screaming and running around this altar, trying to get Baal to wake up and to listen to him. Verse 29, midday passed, and they continued their frantic prophesying until the time for the evening sacrifice. But there was no response. No one answered. No one paid attention, meaning Baal. Now this is almost a silly question, but let me ask you this question. If you made a god out of wood, if you made an idol, and you bowed down in service to this idol, in worship to this idol, is this God that you made, that you are serving, is that thing able to answer when you cry out? Okay, what if this? What if instead of a wood idol, you worship paper? And what I mean by that, like paper in the form of money or stocks or bonds or something like that. What if you've made materialism God in your life? Can you call out to materialism, and will that answer? What if you made yourself God? What if you have made worldly power or position or pleasure in life your God? When you find yourself up against it, is anything going to cry out? Is anything going to listen? Is anything going to respond to you? Continuing in verse 30. So then Elijah said to all the people, "Come here to me." And then they came to him, and he repaired the altar of the Lord, which had been torn down. Elijah took 12 stones, one for each of the tribes descended from Jacob, to whom the word of the Lord had come, saying, "Your name shall be Israel." With the stones, he built an altar in the name of the Lord, and he dug a trench around it, large enough to hold 2 seahs, which is probably about 24 pounds, 24 pounds of seed. He arranged the wood, cut the bull into pieces, and laid it on the wood. Now I want to show you a picture of Elijah's altar here. And this is what he does. Then he said to them, "Fill 4 large jars with water and pour it on the offering and on the wood. Do it again," he said, and they did it again. "Do it a third time," he ordered, and they did it a third time. The water ran down around the altar and even filled the trench. Are you getting the picture? Are you getting the picture here? Elijah is basically saying, there's no trick here. Okay, we're gonna bathe this altar in water, because when the Lord answers by fire, it won't be some accident. Okay, it's not going to be some trick. You're going to be able to see this happen. Verse 36, at the time of sacrifice, the prophet Elijah stepped forward and prayed, Lord, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Israel, let it be known today that you are God in Israel, and that I am your servant, and have done all these things at your command. Answer me, Lord, answer me, so these people will know that you, Lord, are God, and that you are turning their hearts back again. You know, my guess is that they're all standing wondering what, if anything, is going to happen. You know, as Elijah started his prayer, and he just started, and you have to think, they've been up there a long time, and they sat through hours and hours of all these other prayers. And so I don't know if they thought that prayer is not enough. I don't know what they were thinking, but when Elijah prayed, okay, when Elijah prayed, scripture says, then the fire of the Lord fell and burned up the sacrifice, the wood, the stones, and the soil, and also licked up the water in the trench. I mean, as Elijah prayed, fire fell from heaven. It didn't just burn up the sacrifice and the wood. It took the stones with it, and it licked up the water that was flowing around in the trench. Crazy. I've got some actual satellite photographs of that event. Look at that. Okay, I'm just going to remind you. This is a map. This is the Mount Carmel range, just so that you can remember. Megiddo is way down here. This is the Via Maris going up this way toward the Sea of Galilee. Nazareth is on this ridge over here. This whole fertile valley is the Valley of Jezreel. And Mount Carmel is this is the whole mountain range of Mount Carmel, with the tallest part being right in here somewhere. Watch this. There's what it looks like today. I thought that was pretty cool. You can see the satellite photo of it. Megiddo down here, Nazareth over here. Mount Carmel is this whole thing right here. There's a whole bunch of people that live here. There's a whole city right here. The heights of the mountain right here. And look, here's a satellite picture of that puppy on fire. I'm saying it like that. You know, I don't know how it amazed. And obviously that's not a real satellite picture of the fire happening in Elijah's time. That's actually a picture of a forest fire there. But when this happened in the Bible, what is your guess as to what the Israelites did that were sitting there watching that happen? I mean, if there were any reason to lose it, maybe that was it. When that fire came down from heaven, you know, what do you think you would do if you had been there? Okay, if you were standing around the top of that mountain watching that happen, what do you think you would have done? And I think you would have done probably exactly what they did. Verse 39, when all the people saw this, they fell prostrate. They fell flat on the ground, and they cried out, the Lord, he is God. The Lord, he is God. And you see, if you were there, and think about this. If you were there and you had the chance to choose a side after the fact of that test, of that contest, okay, would there even be a question of whose side you would pick? You know, Elijah asked the question before the contest. Everybody kept their mouth shut. Okay, but as soon as that happened, they're like, the Lord's God. The Lord is God. He is God. Okay, so it's one thing to pick before the contest. Okay, but can you imagine if you got to choose the answer after the contest? Church, today is just like that. We get to choose God after the resurrection of Jesus. Church, the contest is over. Jesus has won this thing. Okay, it's already been won. We don't choose Jesus because we've seen him in person. We're able to choose Jesus because we have the Bible. Someone wrote it down for us. Through the inspiration of the Holy Spirit, we have the Bible. And we know this. We know that Jesus has won. So it's like the Israelites on Mount Carmel. They're getting to pick after the contest. But I want you to think about it. I want you to think about how we know about Jesus. Okay? Here's an illustration. We believe Abraham Lincoln existed and that he did the things that we've read about. We don't believe that because we've ever met him in person. Okay, we believe it because somebody wrote it down about him, and we trust that. We believe Caesar existed, not because we've ever seen Caesar face to face, but because we have read what has been written about him. And church, we believe in Jesus not because we have seen Jesus with our own eyes face to face, but because the record we have today, the Bible, which is validated by far more ancient sources than any other ancient book, that incredibly validated book, the Bible, has given us testimony of him. Romans 10:17 says, consequently, faith comes from hearing the message, and the message is heard through the word about Christ. Now, when you make that decision that God is God, that Jehovah God is God, it's going to show up in at least a couple of ways. Okay, it's going to show up, first of all, or one of the ways, in how you spend your time. Do you have any time for the kingdom's sake? Or is all your time spent on you? Is all your time spent on you? It's on your job, on your hobby, on keeping yourself physically fit rather than spiritually fit? Is all your time spent on you in that regard? Is your time all yours? Or is there any time for the kingdom of God? Because you see, the most precious commodity that we have in this life is time. You can't reclaim it. You can't recycle it. You can't recall it. There really isn't any such thing as PGO that we used to call out when we were kids playing football in the front yard. PGO just means play goes over. Okay? There are no mulligans in life. All you have is today. And when today is gone, you can't retrace it. You can't recreate it. It's gone. And so the question is, if you have decided that God really is God in your life, does your use of your time reflect that? Or are you deluding yourself in thinking that you believe God really is God? Secondly, if God really is God and you have chosen him, then it's going to reflect in the way you use your abilities. Okay, your gifts and your talents. When we made the decision to clothe ourselves with Christ, join him in his death, burial, and resurrection, to die to ourselves and to live for him, when we made that decision, we will use every bit of us in his service. So are you good at something? Maybe woodworking. Do you really enjoy, a certain activity? Do you find pleasure or fulfillment in accomplishing a certain task or a job? Okay, so here's my question. How are you doing in making that something you are good at? How are you doing in making that effective in God's kingdom? Did you understand how I asked that question? Last week, this is what I think Lori Gillen was talking about in our in-person class about our personal ministries. We were talking about using courage in our personal ministries, and Lori's point was, in our personal ministries, those things that we're really good at, sometimes it doesn't really take as much courage because we already have courage there. I mean, we're already good at it. We have some expertise there. It's something we enjoy, something we're understanding. And because of that, we have some confidence. Well, that is awesome point. And I love that point that Lori made. And it fits so well right here. It doesn't take necessarily extraordinary courage when we already have some courage because God has gifted us in this area. So how are you doing in making that something you're really good at effective in God's kingdom? Okay, how is your gift helping bring someone to Christ? And if you want, look at the picture of that guy. How is his gift of woodworking? How could it help bring someone to Christ? How is it helping someone get connected to his church? How is it helping in building relationships? You know, all the time and effort that you put into those tasks that you really enjoy doing that bring so much fulfillment and pleasure, do you see yourself using those things to help bring someone to Christ? Can't you? Can't you see yourself using those things to connect someone to his church, to help strengthen relationships, to encourage God's morality, to encourage God's values? You know, here's a weird thing. Come to think of it, if that's actually part of evangelism, and I really believe it is, why aren't we all doing evangelism? It seems to me if those things that God has given me the ability to enjoy and excel at are used for his glory, that makes evangelism not very scary. Okay, it may even make evangelism enjoyable, because that way we realize that when we do those things, we can draw people closer to him and his church. One final point. When we make the decision to follow Christ, I need to let you know that it's really not going to be it won't be easy. The decision may be easy because we just absolutely believe it, but living the life won't necessarily be easy. And what I mean by that is it's not going to be cheap. Okay, it will cost us something. So I'm going to give an illustration here. Years ago, I read of a high school assembly. The Marines had come to recruit from the senior class. And after other groups had come and gone from the podium, at last the Marine approaches the podium in this auditorium filled with high school seniors. And then when it was his turn, when he came up there, he didn't make some impassioned speech. He didn't make some, impassioned appeal. What he did was he just stood up and he just stared at his audience. He studied his audience. He didn't say anything. He stood there just staring at the teens, looking carefully at all their faces. And he stood there and he said nothing for so long that it kind of made everybody uncomfortable. They started kind of squirming in their seat and kind of shrugging their shoulders like, what's going on? And finally, when the Marine spoke, here's what he said. I don't think there are but 2 or 3 of you in here that could cut it in the Marine Corps. But I would like to meet with those 2 or 3 kids right after this assembly in the cafeteria. And you can guess what happened, because I'm using this as an illustration. When the assembly ended and the Marines went to the cafeteria, it was full of kids who wanted to meet him. You know what he had done? He made an appeal to the hero inside of them. Okay, church, there is no more heroic appeal on the face of the earth than the appeal of the kingdom of God. It will call for every fiber of your being to be engaged. It will challenge you in ways that nothing else can in this life. And it will fulfill you in ways that nothing else can in this life. So answer the heroic call of Jesus, who invites you to the kingdom. You know, the contest, it's over. And you get to decide at the end of the contest. So won't you decide and let it make a difference, because it will absolutely, absolutely change the way you use your gifts and the way you use your time. Let's bow in prayer. Father, we are grateful for the way you love us. We're grateful for your servant Elijah and his ability to have courage in the face of opposition. We're grateful that he trusted you so much. But we're also grateful for the Israelites who, when they saw and they knew in their heart that they turned straight to you. They didn't stop and ask the question, well, I guess I already decided one time and went to Baal. Father, they chose you. May we do the same, and may we see it really affect how we live our lives. And may we live joyously. And may we come to the conclusion and understanding that, you know what, we can use all of our gifts in such a joyful way to bring others to you. And may that happen. May you truly be proud of us. In Jesus' name, amen.